Bob, thank
Yes.
you very much for setting a few minutes aside.
No problem.
I greatly appreciate it. As you know, you're one of the people in this industry that I look up to no end. I've been blessed to have spent lots of hours bugging you and learning from you.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking up at me, you must be on your knees because I'm quite a bit shorter.
So, I guess one of the biggest questions I have is in regards to you've become one of the most influential artists, amazing artists that has a distinct style of all your own. You've developed tools that are specific to leatherwork. You filled a void in tools because from what you've told me in the past, because there just wasn't what you needed out there, and so you built what you needed.
Yes, sir.
And you've taken and refined and refined and refined and still continue to this day to create new tools. But that's just the tool side of it, not to mention the incredible artwork. So rewinding all the way back, how did you even get into this wild world of what led you down that path?
I was um, going to college and I wanted something made out of leather, a very fine product, and I have good eyes. And I'd look around from Florida to California to Pennsylvania, and I never found anything that qualified to satisfy my needs. I was in a store in Florida, and the gentleman says, "Sounds like you know exactly what you want. Why don't you buy some leather, some tools, and make it yourself?" Okay. I bought the wrong leather, bought the wrong colors, I bought the wrong tool. What I was going to draw my pictures with was a bar grounder. I didn't know anything better. I went home and I was not qualified to create the product that I wanted, but once I touched the skin, it touched me back. What's more sensuous to work with than skin? So I was hooked. It touched all my senses, okay? So I played with it and I made little sand candles and made holders for them and gave them to my mother and father as little gifts and things. Um, I always drew, and um, I drew a lot. I wanted to be a cartoonist, but when I looked at the work that artists were really creating, I was intimidated like crazy. No way I could compete with them. But leather offered me a medium that I thought was really unique. I started in a swamp in South Carolina. I was a psychology major, and so I took a job at the local mental hospital. I timed it so that I'd come in at 12 o'clock at night, and I'd work on my leather work till 8 o'clock in the morning. And my students would come out and say, "Mr. Beard, what'd you make last night?" And I'd show them, and they go, "Ooh, that's pretty cool. Would you teach us how to do this?" Why not? I don't know anything. We'll educate one another. So I got the hospital to supply me with hammers and buy me leather. And I ended up having 84 students. I call it an art therapy program, which is enough to fool the doctors into allowing me to do such a thing. And I got them to supply my students. And I changed my schedule. I would come in 5 o'clock because I was in college. And I would work till midnight. After dinner, we would sit down and we'd have art therapy on the floor, carving on linoleum. I was fortunate enough to go to North Carolina to get a river rock that was kind of flat. I had that in my lap. I didn't know tools existed, so initially I would paint on the leather with Kova dyes. Okay. And I would make nails and things into borders that would frame my work. And I started making more elaborate things using drills to make little dots and things, and I'd color them and put the little dots in with a toothpick. And I'd sell them faster than I could make them. So I was making money. I was selling my belts for $10 a piece, and they helped me supply my needs in college. But what was most important, each student that I had, because they didn't know anything, they'd start from scratch, and they'd make mistakes. And since I was the nurse, they asked me to assist them. You have a problem, we'll figure out how to solve it. I got your answer. Nobody else in the room got that answer. But the next guy, he had a problem. I got his answer. Nobody else did. By the time one evening was over, I had 84 new answers. After 4 years of that, I had a lot of answers. I was solving problems like, oh my Lord, I'd have never done that. Then I found out that the dies were not holding, didn't have any kind of dimension. So I was literally modified a pocket knife and I would paint my designs and then I would cut the outlines of it. I didn't know to wet the leather. I didn't know anything. It was just, I was in a swamp in South Carolina. Started doing that. And then I'd find, wow, maybe I could hit this stuff and drive the depth in. But the only thing I could hit them with would be nails. So I carved a bunch of nails and basically made crude bevelers. And I would paint it, I'd cut it afterwards, and then I'd stamp the starch out of it. Then I discovered Tandy Leather Company. Ooh, these guys. These are leather tools? So I bought everything they had. But I bought two. Because when I got them home, they didn't apply to what I was trying to make them do. When I made grass with their particular tool, the two legs on the outside were getting in my way, the way I was doing it. So I modified it. But in case I didn't do it right, I had a base to go back to. So if I screwed up, I had back to the base. I found that most of my modifications benefited me. So I have a complete collection of craft tool that I never use, okay? Then I discovered their round matters. Boy, that was the cheapest, largest nail head I could ever find, so I could make veiners and all kinds of wild stuff with that. So I buy every round matter they had, and I just tear them up. And once you cut through the chrome, it's gummy. So started making tools, and then Tandy was telling me, you can wet the leather and it'll behave and train. So I started doing that, and then I discovered that I wet the leather and mold it, and then I come back and add the couplers. So I started doing that, and it just progressed. But I'd always design my products according, I'd make little windows and panels, and I would read you, say, okay, you're a water skier, you're a scuba diver, you're a hunter, whatever. And I'd try to put your history on your belt. So I did that, and it taught me to solve problems and be more versatile in my abilities. And after several years, I graduated college. I found that psychology was not the direction I wanted to go because I discovered that the doctors that were in there were sicker than the patients that I was dealing with. I didn't want to be one of those sick guys. I'm sick enough as it is. So I quit that, and they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I want to make my living doing leatherwork. You'll never make it. I'm in there to make it. I'm in it for smiles. So I pursued that. I left South Carolina. I moved back to my native home of California. My father was in the fashion industry, and I had connections with movie stars, Clint Eastwood, Charlton Heston, John Wayne, Ronald Reagan, many famous people. Back in those days, the security at concerts were not as secure as they are now. So I had friends, connections that could get me backstage. So I did guitar straps for Leonard Skinner, ZZ Top, Tina Turner, Clint Eastwood, whomever. Okay, Frank Zappa, Bono of U2, and Rick Derringer and Edgar Winter and just different people. And so I continued that, and I carried that to California, where I'd just be walking down the street and I'd run into stars, and I'd show them what I did, and they would order from me and challenge me, and I learned more and more. And I discovered a magazine. It was called Make It With Leather, or The Leather Craftsman. It was back when Earl Warren owned the magazine, back in the late 60s. I did my first article back in 1960 or 1970. I think it was called A Chic Western Handbag, custom made. I did another one on a guitar strap I did for Leonard Skinner. I did one on belt buckle I couldn't make a belt buckle that would match the style of my work. And I'm really lucky to get $10 for my belt. I can't put a $10 belt and have to pay $600 for a belt buckle to match it. It didn't match it. So I figured out how to make a belt buckle out of leather that would fit any belt perfectly and match my style. So I did that. I was using solvent dyes, and sun would be a terrible fader on that. And when I got the Make It With Leather magazine and Earl Warren and these people, I was reading The Tricks of the Trade by a gentleman named Al Shelton. Okay?
Yeah.
I looked at Stolman's books. I never carved a Stolman pattern, but the information he was giving me was corresponding and verifying the direction I was going. So it just made me feel at least you're on the right path. It's going to take practice, but I'm on the right path. And I was not intimidated by anybody because I was in a swamp. So I didn't have that, God, I'll never be that good, so I'm afraid to even start. I moved to California, and I made it my point to meet a gentleman, Al Shelton. At that time, there was no information available. These guys were very threatened, very insecure. Competition was very tough. And so I'd come in the shop, and Al would turn his work upside down. Couldn't see what he was working on. He'd put a towel over his tools, but he needed praise. So I would look at his work and praise him. And I had enough information in my brain at that time to be able to dissect it. I knew what stages he did, what, where, and how. I could just figure it out. And I buttered him. So he was very happy to have me in the shop. Then I was very fortunate to meet a young lady named Christine Stanley. And she took me under her wing. She was a lovely woman. I went to her home in wherever, Corona del Mar, somewhere in Southern California. Was invited in, met her husband, met her family. And she encouraged me, would you be interested in joining the Leather Guild?
And that's the original leather guild.
Yeah, what's a Leather Guild? Well, it's a club with leather workers. Okay. We have a show every year called the Leatherama. I'd like to see you enter. We've got one person that has not been beat in 10 years. You can't beat her. I think you can beat her. Well, what makes you think that? I'm the head judge. Okay, where do I sign? I was fortunate, and my work was different enough to where I did succeed in that task. At that time, you were not allowed to enter the competition without being an Al Stoneman pattern. I'm outside the box, okay? I didn't want to be limited. I wanted to learn, but I didn't need to copy, okay? So I had things that were completely different, which is probably what set me apart from the norm. It was something new, and it was accepted. And I was still continuing to teach.
So at this time, were you doing like the figure carving and?
Oh yes,
this,
oh yes,
so you had already.
oh yes. And I had started exploring dimension, embossing things, and I'd use 25 pieces of leather, build it up to 4 inches thick to get the dimensions I wanted. I didn't have enough information. I'm learning. I'm just struggling, but I'm pushing the envelope hard, hard, hard. How far can I go? God, I can't find the limit. So I kept pushing, and it never pushed back. It allowed me to go there, and I was rewarded. And the reward of doing such a thing is far valuable, more valuable than the money. And I had the freedom to live my life, pursue something I have a love affair for, and it could pay me a little bit. Okay? So I started with the dimension, and as I did more and more and more, I gained more practice, more skills, zeroed in on my style, and just developed that. And it broadened out to where I started getting involved in 1989. Out of the clear blue sky, I was invited to judge a show in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by a young lady named Carol Gurman. She said, would you be our head judge? Sure. So they flew me to Minnesota. I had the privilege that the judge is the only person allowed to touch work. And I had a scan because I can make my decisions instantly. But I wanted to scan everything first. There were 2 belts in there that really jumped out at me. One is a gentleman named Dave Genetic. Another gentleman is a guy named Bill Gomer. And I saw that work, and I picked that work up and looked at it, and Bill was sitting at the bar and just, Carol, who the hell's that hippie touching my work? That's our judge, Bill. Oh. So that's how I met Bill Gomer back in '89. So we did that, and then I started getting more involved with the guild. I've been to, at this particular show, this is the 47th guild show that I've attended. I've never missed one. And the travel to talk to people that was as sick with this ailment as I was, I had to go to the nest of these things, guilds, meetings. I would start teaching at all of these places. When I lived in California, I would go to the Leatherama. I met a young lady at the Tandy store, Roz. It was Roz Short at that time, Roz Cullen at this point. And she was completely out of the box. And I was discussing with her about still, she didn't like that. And, my mother was with me. She didn't know what, who, or where. And then she went to the Leatherama meeting where I was demonstrating. She went, oh my goodness, So I attended that, and it just evolved from there. I just kept adding more and more and more. I presently belong to, oh golly, 35 guilds on a global basis. I'm an honorary member. I can't afford to pay for all these dues and memberships. I'm not political at all, but I want to support this idea, enhance it.
Any idea how many countries you've taught in at this point?
Probably 27 countries that I've actually taught in, probably 39 states. Okay. And I've been doing this for 49 years. My schedule is enough to kill a human. I mean, it's terrible. I finish a federation show. I have to drive to Chicago on Sunday afternoon to catch a plane to France.
Right.
The next day. I do the Sheridan show. I have to catch a plane to China in 4 days. I'm the whole show. I manufacture them. I design them. I advertise them. Everything is on me, but it's my name on there. I don't have a romance with computers. I was never in this for the money. It's a love affair. And if you put a price on love, you're going at the wrong thing. If you're doing it for money, you're going at the wrong thing. If you want to do this, do it for the love. You'll never be dissatisfied.
Right.
If you're trying to make a career out of it, you're going to starve. There are very, very few wealthy saddle makers. Okay? So that was my goal. I wanted freedom and I wanted to be happy. I say I've attained both. Okay? I'm the richest man I know. I don't have any money yet. Depends on how you measure your wealth. So I've continued and developed this, and I've been teaching. They discovered me in California, Tandy Call, or a trade school in Simi Valley, California. I don't know how they've heard of me. I think Tandy or whoever called them, and they invited me to get a teacher's credential, California teacher's credential, and teach at their trade center. They provided me with the credentials. I started the next day, and I taught in that, and I started teaching in the Tandy stores. Greg Sarter was there, Ron Morgan, who was the Western Regional Director, who's now one of the big boys at Leather Factory at the time. And a gentleman came in after a few years of teaching. A gentleman named George Hurst came in there, and he was a headhunter. And he wanted me to, Al Stolman's getting a little old. You have a future. You're young. You're rather dumb. So we can take you and mold you into, we'll make you the most famous leather worker in the world. I said, well, fame's not my goal. Freedom is my goal. So we went, he made me an offer, but it required me to move to Fort Worth, Texas, leaving the beaches of Malibu and the action of California for pennies. I said, no, I can't possibly do that. And they were smart enough to get Tony Lair, who's been a brilliant man. He's involved in it. So I continued to teach at Tandy stores. I was teaching in probably 6 or 8 Tandy stores throughout Southern California, Corona Del Mar, Reseda, North Hollywood, wherever they would allow me. So I did teaching there for years and years. But once again, I learned more from my students than they'll ever learn from me, because I'm getting the answers to all their problems. They're only getting their individual answers. So I kept adding more information to myself. But then when I go to teach, I drew my own patterns. And I designed tools to fit my drawings. If I didn't have a tool that would fit that drawing, I designed one.
Who taught you, or who inspired? Did you self-teach yourself, kind of like leather, on how to build your tools?
Yes, of course I did.
You just...
Well, I had been
we
making
have
them
the
out of
vision to
nails
see.
with files and whatever I could find.
Okay.
One of my students, Mary Noble, had a husband. She kept bragging, oh, Howie can do that. He's a genius machinist. One night he came to my class in Simi Valley and says, yeah, I can do that. I can help you. Well, these guys need some tools that'll undercut and stuff like that, but mine are bending. He says, oh, I can fix that. So he made a few tools, brought them to the class, and let the students use them, and it took dragons to get those tools back out of their hands. They want them. I said, no, it's the only set I have. So I said, Howie, would you please make tools for my classes? No, I don't have time for production. I'm a development guy. Howie is responsible, gave me the gifts and the encouragement to do this. Very simple. He's a 92-year-old man, okay? If I might regress, one of the key elements that I learned from my dear lady, Christine Stanley, now she has passed away, but she gave this industry a gift that she deserves the credit for. Other people have taken the credit for this technique. She is the one. And that is this putty embossing. Using leather dust and rubber cement, she is the one who developed that style. I passed it on to certain individuals who were in the same game I was that was teaching. Some figured it was kosher to take the credit for that. She's gone. She couldn't dispute the fact that I did it, but she deserves the gifts that she gave me. So I will give her all the credit in the world for giving that to us. So I've taught that. Everything else, I found that if I wanted tools, if I want it, I have to do it. I started asking machine shops all over the world, from Denmark to China, Korea, Japan, Canada, America. They were going to ask more than I was willing to sell those tools. People couldn't afford them. I can't do that. So my friend Howard Noble Engineering in Sun Valley, he took me under his wing. He says, Bob, it's real simple. Just get this machine, and this machine. Okay. So I bought those machines, and I was in a garage. I was at a friend's house, and I put all my equipment in his garage in the rain, and I sat out there and I cut the steel, and I knurled it, and I cut them, and I spent a lot of time on the learning curve, a lot of time. And I bought a heat treating oven, and I started learning how to heat treat. But the fact that I knew how to carve leather, and I'd made tools before, gave me the insight to know what a curve is, how much curve, what's not enough curve, what the angle is going to do, because I'm carving leather. That's where I really made my name.
Right.
The fact that I was privileged enough to win several accolades in best of shows and first places and things, I had developed kind of a following. My classes were well done. And so people saw my tools and think, oh, if we buy Bob's tools, we can carve like Bob can. Yes, you can. It helps you a lot, but everybody can get a paintbrush. Not everybody can swing it. But it gave them an advantage. So I'm trying to make it so the industry is not limited by the tools they can possess. If they have a dream, it's my job to help figure out how to solve that dream. I made them for my classes starting in probably 1971, maybe. By 1984, I started figuring out how I could make them for the public. In 1989, I developed 12 different tools for a class I was doing in Bismarck, North Dakota with Rob Barr. It's a three-dimensional diorama. I brought my dimensional things to a new level, new level. I released those tools at that show. Had 1,000 copies. They came in the game at $20 a piece. Across the hall was the Leather Factory in Tandy at $3 a piece. I sold 1,000 tools in 4 hours. And they stood there with their mouth open going, wow. And I said, well, you can get to Dallas in a Yugo or you can get there in a Ferrari. They're both cars. One thing Howie asked me when he started me in the tool game, he says, do you want a pretty tool or one that works good? I want one that works good. Beauty is not my game. Okay, we'll make it out of tool steel instead of stainless or anything else, because it will take the beating and keep on ticking. Drop it on the floor. It won't damage the checkering. Hit your marble. I will break your granite. Period. Because I've heat treated them, the energy that is applied to the top of the tool is directed straight to the target, so the burnish is harder. It's deeper. The power needed to do it is reduced. The fatigue is reduced. The noise is different. There's no flexibility in the tool, so they cannot bend. They can't. And I break granite with these darn things. I've probably, at this stage of the game, probably made close to 90,000 tools. I've seen maybe 6 break out of 90,000. Lifetime guarantee. They stand the test of time. But because they're made out of heat-treated carbon tool steel, they're subject to rust. If you want to heat treat it, you need carbon. So I had carbon steel. Well, rust does not like to go to a piece of steel that's been hardened. So I heat treated them, so I had to learn metallurgy. Rust does not like to go to a smooth piece of steel because it has no tooth to grab onto. So I polished the starch out of them. Rust does not like to go to a place that's blued or that's already rusted. So I blew them. Hot bluing, I boil them in salt water at certain temperatures and go through a process, and I'm rusting them. I'm controlling that rust. And that was my signature move. It makes them black, which makes them stand out of the crowd and more noticed. Okay? There's black tools out there. There's black cars, and they're all makes and models. Okay? They're not all the same car.
All right.
But that's what started me in making the blue tools. And I've never switched steel. It's incredible stuff. And I make these without any mechanized machinery. Of course, I have a mill to turn a round thing into a rectangle. I have a lathe to cut tapers for me. But everything is ground on a 1x42-inch belt sander, put an engraving ball, and I cut all the lines with a cutoff wheel or dental burrs or files. I mean, I've got a battery of Fordhams, which is a souped up Dremel, and I hand cut them. I use a magnifier, and everything's done by hand. When I've cut 12 balls around it, I'm sighting it. I'm drawing it on, okay, with ink, and I use a needle to draw my patterns, and I just cut it. And the more problems I solve, the more prepared I am to solve new problems. And that has added to my abilities, increased my confidence, and satisfied me more. And that's a elusive bird of perfection. You can't catch it, but I can taste it, okay? So the tools I'm making now are light years ahead of the tools I made 30, 40 years ago, okay? And it just continues to grow. And I've solved enough problems that when you have a special situation you need to get out of, you present me with the idea, and I'm dissecting it on the phone. I'm looking at all the aspects of it, and I'll think, all right, Josh, that leg out there is going to prevent you from making a right turn. But if we reduce that, so I'm designing it, and I'll think about it the whole time that I'm preparing to build it, and I'll solve all those problems before I start cutting.
I've actually come to you for a tool idea, and I told you what I wanted and what I needed, and you explained to me the same exact thing before without seeing it, and this is over the phone. You told me, oh, well, you don't need that. What you need is to use this tool, but use it in this way.
Yeah.
Which is, again, because you've ran into the same problem, but you already knew the solution.
Yes.
So that goes back into your whole lifetime of experience.
Yeah, it helps.
Solving.
I mean, just like anything else, the practice at swivel knife cutting, the practice at leather carving, all of this. Another thing that I discovered, and Al Shelton told me this, he says, these spirit dyes, they won't take the sun because they're translucent. The sun sees through that to the leather. The cow's had hair on it all of its life. You shave that hair off and put him in the sun, he's going to sunburn, and he's going to tan, and it's going to bleach out the pigments in those solvent dyes. So if I do an outdoor show, in 1 hour, it changed all the dynamics. It changed all the dynamics of my coloring in an hour. And I'd freak out because I spent hours blending and doing all this stuff. He says, no, Bob, you should use watercolors. That's what he used. And I was already painting with acrylics. I had a good supply of those. They're flexible, they're plastic, and they are 100% ultraviolet proof. There's other things you have to learn. You have to compensate for the amount of tannage that naked leather is going to receive, because if I paint something bright against a white background, it's not bright, but as that background turns darker, that brightness shows more and more. So I have to predict how much difference or contrast these colors are going to give me. So I went to acrylics. I'll never turn back. They last forever. They'll never make them illegal. They're not poisonous. You can buy them anywhere in thousands of colors. So I switched to acrylics, and I've been painting with acrylics for maybe 57, 58 years, and it's just natural to me. And so I teach coloring, and I can't teach color sense, but I can teach technique, and I can give you rules to follow and, things like that. And so I've continued, and it continues to go, but it got to the point where my belts were only available to people that had the money to pay me $20 an hour, and that was considered a high paycheck. And so I was dealing with movie stars and rock and roll stars, and my belts, the last belts I made professionally, were $3,500 to $4,000. Now, it becomes prohibitive for the normal guy to buy that thing. I have to make a lot of them. I can make more money making a $20 tool than a $4,000 belt.
Right.
So I now have no time to carve. I just make tools to share this knowledge with other people, but I get the opportunity to develop classes, which it's carving. I'm not in my zone. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I wouldn't say I handicap myself, but I will allow you, the student, to outperform me. In the end, because I'm usually carving in a dark space and I can't see, and I don't have my music, and I'm just not in the zone. But in the end, I win because now you're inspired even more. Because if I carve my best, then I could be the guilty party that I was afraid of when I started by overwhelming you and making you insecure about pursuing such a thing. So a lot of times my students come out with a better project than I did, which gives them the confidence to continue, and they go home and have bragging rights with their family. Look, I even beat the teacher who won.
So is that, in your opinion, one of the biggest differences that we have today? Where, yeah, when I first started doing leather work, I heard from people, and I haven't been doing this very long, but I heard from people that, oh, well, that's a dying art or that's an old art. But you come to these shows in these places and they're growing year over year and there's more and more people doing it. But I've also heard that, from when you started, and like what you were talking about earlier
Yes.
about Al Shelton, where people would flip it over and it
Yes.
was always so secretive. Not
Yes.
only now do we have this whole digital environment, and I can talk to you wherever you're traveling as long as I can find you, or connect with all of these different
I'm
artists
not
all over the world.
insecure. I'm not threatened.
But is that you think that's actually helping our industry grow and people? What do you see as the biggest change in the shift right
The willingness of people to share.
Okay.
Okay. They're no longer as intimidated as they used to be. The industry has grown because of the advent of virtual reality. There's fewer people doing crafty things by their hands. The younger generation is not interested in this kind of thing, but it's making a resurrection. There are a lot more students in my classes. The ability to get incredible tool forms from me and my other fellow tool makers is unsurpassed in history. And our willingness to share it is brand new. And it keeps us alive. And I don't care if it's a dying industry, I'll die doing it. That's my love affair, okay, till death do us part, okay? So if you're going at this for money, you've got the wrong motivation. If you do it because it makes you happy in a spiritual way, you can't replace that with money. What is your treasure? So that's what I base my life on. And because of that, I have the privilege of seeing the world. And they say, what are you going to do when you retire? Well, I'm not going to travel. I do that. But why would I quit? Because when I go teach a class, I'm going to see loved ones. If I'm not going to go see loved ones, I'm going to meet new ones. What's more rewarding? Okay? There's other things that are out there, and it gives me such a freedom, and they're so hungry for the knowledge that I'm treated wonderfully. They're so hungry for it. People that live around me, family, the guy that works for me, they don't care. But you, for example, are hungry for that. Sir, I'm choking on the smiles this has given me. Yeah, I'm choking on it. I've got to get them out so I can receive more, okay? So I try my very best to give you everything you want. Now I've spread a piece of my joy to your future. It will keep growing. So who's winning? All of us, right? So it feeds itself. And the more it feeds it, it feeds me. And it makes me hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. I can only do so much. My production capabilities are limited because I insist on doing everything by hand. I'm BC. I'm before computers. Okay? There's a human spirit to handwork. Some people are tuned into things like that. Some people have no vision. One gift I was given was vision. And I see things people miss or take for granted. And I don't miss much. So these things all add up to propel me to keep going. I can't put out a catalog of my tools. I can't even put out a website because I can't take the onslaught of information or of orders that I may receive. There are people that have the capabilities of making the most tools in the world. Barry can make the most. He is the biggest tool maker on the planet. That was not my goal. My goal was to make the finest tool that I could possibly make and try to make the best tools in the world. I tell people you can get to Dallas in a Yugo or you can get there in a Ferrari. They're both cars. If you're starting out, buy a Yugo. If you crash it or you want to walk away from it, you haven't got $1 million invested in it. When you find that performance is holding your dreams back, I'll step into the game and I'll help you. And so you, with your problems, educate me. And I've solved so many problems over 50 years that I've got a real good mind for holding them. I have a photographic memory, so I remember things and add to the next problems I've got to solve, which gives me more and more abilities. And there's no end to it. You can't learn enough. And again, I can't hold it all, so I have to share it. And the reward I get from sharing it is far less lonely than holding it to yourself, huh? You were in my class. Enthusiasm is contagious. Would you think I'm enthusiastic in my classes?
Yes.
Okay. That'll get you there.
I've taken several of your classes. I've learned something new and different in each and every one.
Yes.
And I've taken from your classes, I've been able to take technique, not just for the subject that we're working on, but then apply it to take that technique and then apply it towards another project I'm working on and continue to build and grow.
Absolutely.
And then I've also had the pleasure of taking some of those back and say, oh, look what I figured out. Started from here and look where that went. Right. So it kind of continues that momentum. And for that, I'll be forever grateful.
Did it threaten me?
No.
Did it hurt me?
No, you were actually pretty excited about it.
If you ask me the time, I'll build you a watch. Okay? But I want to answer any question. I've never told anybody in my whole career that's a trade secret. I don't have any trade secrets. If a teacher comes before me and tells the students he's got a trade secret he won't share with them, I'm making my business to figure out his trade secret, and I come in a week later and give him all the secret. Okay? So, no, that's a sign of insecurity, or you feel threatened. I'm not threatened. I have more than I can possibly carry. More. So by helping you, I can look at you, Josh, and see the appreciation in your eyes. I can see the smile. How else could I earn that? That's a value. So that's what I live on. It's got me this far, but I couldn't take the onslaught being very difficult to find. I'm swamped on an international level. I'm selling more to China than I need to sell in America. Americans come first because I'm a patriotic guy, but it's global, and Facebook has unleashed that on me. I'm not prepared for it, so I have to restrict it. I'm no longer in the growth stage. I'm in the cruising stage. I've created this monster. I've learned to feed it, but as I grow older, that monster's starting to eat me. So I reached the age when somebody like you, somebody like David, or somebody like Chris, they help me bring my world into here. Carried in my heavy tool boxes. I'm too skinny and too old to carry that stuff. It's killing me. It's killing me. So now I have people that are willing to assist me, and it's greatly appreciated. That allows me to continue. Because if I had to pick up these 80-pound boxes and load them in the truck every day and do it one weekend here, one weekend there, one weekend there, I mean, last weekend I was in Wichita Falls. This weekend I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. Next weekend I'm in Portland, Oregon. The next weekend after that I'm in Chicago. And it just keeps going, keeps going. I'm trying to slow this down, but there's more and more demand. But if I put out a catalog or a website, I'm 5 years behind. And it may be disappointing to people that I don't have these items, but I think they're more disappointed. I say, I'll be glad to make you that too. You just got to wait 5 years. Then they're mad at me because I'm too busy. I don't want to make the most tools in the world. I want to make the best tools in the world. I stand behind them. I do it. It's my name on there. We need an apprentice. If you're an artist, you get your apprentice to draw the original picture or add the colors. Which one do you wanted to let go of? Neither. So my guy, he's been with me 26 years, and I couldn't do this without him. He frames my pictures and stretches the canvas. He takes care of my life at home, fixes fences, feeds the dogs, works on the air conditioner, whatever needs to be done. He keeps himself busy. And I can work at what I do the best and allow us to each make a living from this. Without him, I'd be helpless. I'd be helpless. I just couldn't do it without him. So it is a team effort, but when my name is on it and my word's behind it, I'm going to make sure it's the very best thing come out. I cannot afford a learning curve with my name attached to it. So I've taken upon myself to make them so they're all individually made, and they are 100% made by hand. I sit with a loop, with a vise, and tools, and just make them. I can't raise my prices and still allow people to afford them. So the only thing I can do is get enough practice to be more efficient with my movement, and the practice makes me more sure, so I have to increase my abilities to make them more quickly, which after enough of them becomes muscle memory. Okay, I don't need patterns. If I have a new tool, I hold one in one hand, grind it, and compare it. And my eye is sharp. I can spot a 10,000th of an inch flaw in a quarter inch faster than I can measure where the mistake is. So That's handy. Somebody wants me to teach them how to make tools, I'll be glad to. Don't have any secrets. However, if you want it, I can't stop you because nobody was there to tell me how to do this. I could figure it out. But I'm already so far ahead of the game. I'm not threatened, okay? So you want it, but you better have all the gifts. You better learn how to work with steel. I have to be a metallurgist. I have to be a chemist. I have to be a machinist. I have to know how to carve leather. Just because you can machine leather doesn't mean you can make good leather tools, because you need to know what they're going to do. Just because you're a good leather worker doesn't mean you know how to make this out of steel. So you better have all of the gifts. Will you get them from me? Sure. I'd rather have you as an ally than an adversary, because I can't do it all forever.
Right.
And there'll be a time when I can't do it. Would I give it to somebody deserving? Absolutely. Have I found someone? Not yet. You know, I've got people that are hungry, and I'll share whatever they want. You ask me a question, as I said, you ask me a question, I'll build your clock. All right. So, but that's how I got started. It's been rewarding. I see other industries. Yeah, there's a competitive nature, but truly, I have a love affair with everyone in this room. And I think you've seen that.
I have.
The people that are my competitors are my dearest friends.
Right.
Okay. We watch each other's back. It is a family. And who gets paid to go play with people they love in a family situation? What a rare opportunity. Change? Not a chance. It's too late. It's too late. I can retire now. I'm overtired. What am I going to do? Travel? No. But I have a child. I'm a single father. And I've got a child that's now in college. And because he's out of state, I've got to keep my ass to the grindstone in order to afford to pay him this out-of-state tuition.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm committed now. I mean, I have a job to do, and I won't stop till I get that accomplished. I just don't see an end. When are you going to stop? When I can't do it anymore.
Well, I hope that's not for a long, long time.
Well, I'll live a pretty fast life.
Bob, I know we've taken up a lot of your time.
It's all right.
I cannot thank you enough.
Josh, have I ever said no to you?
Not once.
Have you ever heard me say no to anyone?
No, I don't think so.
That's why I'm so busy. No,
I know.
I can't. But it's killing me.
I know.
I know. After 50 years and my age and my size and everything else, it's hurting. But I don't care. I get more pleasure out of it than the pain. What's the alternative? Watching TV and reruns of I Love Lucy? I don't love Lucy or even Desi Arnaz, because I can't see black and white. So, no, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And for those that want to pursue this, I can't give you enough encouragement to pursue your dream. Okay? If you shoot at nothing, you're going to hit it. Period. Go for a goal, target it, and if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to do it. And fortunately, in today's world, you have people like myself, people like you, other people in this industry that are instructors or advocates or just want to share their madness. And we have a bonus to share this and propel this so it doesn't die. I'm fighting for the life of this. Okay? Is it going to be a fine art? There's nothing finer. But we have to educate the people that it has value. If you don't value your time, nobody else will. So you must price it to where you can afford to do it. You can't pay people to take your work. You'll never survive. If you die because you starved, they'll never get the benefits of your abilities. I don't price. If I charge what my tools are worth, nobody can afford them. It's my job to make them fast enough to where I keep the price down. So it's a delicate balance, but I've done it for so long and pretty clever. I've managed to make this work for me. Haven't had a real job in 50-something years. So I'm pretty well stuck in the bucket. They wouldn't hire me anyway. I'm pretty spoiled. I don't do well with authority. No. But thank you, sir. If I can help you in any way, you know to call me.
I know.
Okay, just what to call me. That's